Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream where we're going to be talking about the upcoming match against Luton Town down at Kenilworth Road. But I figured if I'm taking over the Only Leeds Bros channel for a few days for the reasons that have been discussed, their dad passed away, which is deeply unfortunate, like condolences out to you two. But YouTube is an absolute monster sometimes, and you need to do what you can to keep a YouTube channel rolling, or the algorithm just turns on you, which is not exactly the best of things. So I'm going to do guest week, or guest however long until they're feeling ready to come back, in which I'm going to try and get a guest on as often as possible to sort of talk Leeds United and all that kind of stuff. Before I bring on today's guest, however, another part of the reason is because I feel like they may have some various obligations to sponsors to go through. So this channel, is sponsored by Match Bingo, as you can see in this graphic down here that I've had to label with the Only Leeds Bros logo so I don't confuse it for my own graphic. Match Bingo, let's talk through what it is. It is a new way to approach watching football where you can play along with live sports, even the most boring of games, and things like cards, corners, free kicks, etc. become that little bit more exciting. You can win cash prizes with a line, 2 lines, or a full house, but remember to be careful with what you are putting into it, because gambling can be dangerous for some people and can cause issues. I believe I've put the Gamble Aware link down below in the description if it is something that you need. And make sure that you are over the age of 18 if you are getting involved in Match Bingo, because it's the responsible thing to do. But I'll be honest, I don't feel hugely qualified to talk about Leeds United a lot of the time. I feel like I've got no idea what's going on. And I know that must be a really reassuring thing to hear from someone that is doing a stream about Leeds United. But to make up for that, I've brought in one of the experts, one of the bigger names in Leeds United YouTube lore, I guess, the Leeds United YouTube space. And I thought I'd bring him down to my level. Sorry about that, Joe. Welcome to the dungeon. How are you doing?
Good. Dragged down, kicking and screeming, Joe. But no,
kicking and screaming, of course. Regular viewers of Only Leeds Bros that don't watch my stuff will discover that there's a level of seriousness in a lot of what they do that is not especially present in what I do a lot of the time, which will be met by a little thing that I've got prepared for the end of the stream, which should be quite fun. I'm not going to be bringing back one of Jer's favourite segments, which is Jer, more like Grr. That one's staying away. But how are you doing? It feels like ages since we last had a chat.
I know that the 5 or 6.5 minutes since we were over on my channel having a chat with the Creator Cup. Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm delighted to be doing this tonight. For those who don't know, Darren's actually a neighbour of mine. He lives behind my house, but he's only a couple of doors away. So great to be able to help the guys out tonight. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Darren and Dillo as well, and their family as well, of a really tough moment for them. So yeah, when Joe texted me earlier on and said, would you be interested in giving the guys a dig out? I was like, absolutely, no problem at all. Let's go. So yeah. So we'll fill in, and we'll fill in as best we can, lads. But I'll try and I can put on more of a Dublin accent if I need to, if that helps people to adjust. But yeah, no problem.
I won't. The best I can do is like a gentle Edinburgh. And that's like a little bit of a Professor McGonagall vibe.
Different country.
I know it's a different country. I'm entirely certain that it's a different. I know this. I'm just saying accents that aren't my own are not the easiest thing to do. And when talking to an Irish person on the YouTube channel of 2 Irish people, given history, I ain't touching that one. I'm staying well clear. But on the topic of staying well clear of things, Kenilworth Road is a ground that I have been told many a time in the past week or so doesn't technically count as in London. I still want it to, because it's funny that people get annoyed at that. But how are you feeling about the trip down there?
I get very annoyed at us Leeds having to go to London to play football. I think we've won 34, 41 games. So we've lost 34 of 41 games in London, something like that, which is a horrible stat. And when I fly to London, I fly to Luton. So, for me, it might not be London City, but it's extended by adjacent London. So I hope it doesn't have the London hoodoo that we've had in recent weeks, months, and years as well. So yeah, I look, this game couldn't have come sooner enough for me because the hangover from last weekend has been torture. I mean, last week's game is one of the first time in a couple of years, and I include the relegation season in this, where I genuinely felt deflated coming away from it. And it really impacted my weekend. It impacted my week. I just haven't been happy about anything. I've tried to go after a couple of days, I'll find a positive to this. And I've really struggled to find it, which is why I've been saying on my channel all week, I understand that people are annoyed the weekend. And even though we're still second in table, I understand how people have thrown the towel in and have thought it's happening again. Here we go. So this game for me, I would have loved a Wednesday game to get that out of the system as quick as we could have. But we're here now. We are where we are. We've 12:30 kickoff, which again we've not been historically very good at. And maybe two negatives cancel each other out and we get a positive. Maybe the fact that it's London-ish and an early kickoff-ish means the Leeds win. But I think there's a good opportunity for Leeds to bounce back here. And I think a week away from Elland Road at this point is probably a good thing. And just to get it out of the system, try and get a good result. And then we've got Middlesbrough midweek. Try and get a decent result there as well. I think if you get 4 points from the two games, it's not a bad run. And then you go into home games where hopefully the mood is a little bit better coming in at that stage. So this could be a good moment to stay away from Elland Road just to ease the pressure on the players a little bit. And I would expect Daniel Farke to make more than the one change you've already alluded to.
Oh, I think he more than alluded to it. He very much said, "Yeah, this is done. This is what's happening." I got a couple of comments on that where people were saying, "Surely that would have been best to not announce until 11:30 on Saturday." Where do you stand on that? Because for me, I think it was very sensible to say early on, because that meant that the fan base was not setting itself on fire for a few more days.
How many more days did we need to have Illan Meslier can't start being said by everybody and their sister? Do you know what I mean? Like, it had gone on for a week. At some point, you want to put that to bed and focus on the actual game ahead. I think from a footballing perspective, Daniel Farke made some very good points during that press conference as to why now for Darlow. And I think announcing it just takes the pressure off them a little bit. We all know what's going to happen. We're not going into Saturday morning still complaining and moaning that we want Meslier dropped. It's happened. It's done. We've dealt with it. We move on. Then we focus on it. And like the other side of it, of letting the team know that it was happening early, is important because they have a full week of prep and they know which goalkeeper they're going with coming into the weekend. He can work on his shape. He can work with his back four. All that's really useful stuff as well. And then the other side to it as well is, from the player's perspective, Darlow gets a chance to just focus in on what he has to do. And then the fact that he said this is the right time to bring Darlow in because he's had 2 90-minute games under his belt for Wales. He's played quite well in both those games, which means he isn't coming into this game in goal for Leeds cold. He's coming in on the back of play 2 90 minutes. So he's got games under his belt. And he played quite well for Wales. The conversation around who's a better keeper, every goalkeeper has weaknesses. I think Darlow's will be with his footwork. I think it'll be how we play out from the back will be the question mark around Darlow. Has his moments. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think he did the right thing in announcing it when he did. I think it just takes the pressure off everyone. The other side to it as well is there's a lot of pressure on Karl Darlow now, because should he have a bad game, then what? You know, Jerry McDermott was on to me during the week and he was saying, if you look at the keepers that made debuts for Leeds, I think I'll dig the text out, but he was basically talking that Illan Meslier made his debut for Leeds at 19. I think Paul Robinson did as well, but I'll double check because he sent me all the information. But then he was also basically talking about the under 21 keeper that Leeds have at the moment, which is Rory Mahady. Yeah, John Lukic made his debut at 17. Paul Robinson made his debut at 19. Meslier made his debut at 19. And Rory Mahady will be 19 in August. Rory Mahady is a very good young goalkeeper at Leeds. And I hope he keeps developing the way he does, because I think he's a smashing goalkeeper there. But there's a huge amount of pressure now on Karl Darlow to put in a performance, or else it's Cairns Mahady, maybe.
The fear around Mahady is he looks a very promising goalkeeper right now, but let's be honest, we don't want to be in the Championship next season? And is he going to be Premier League good? I think absolutely no. And I don't think there's time for Farke to go through you've made a mistake, I'll rely on you again, you've made another mistake, now you're dropped cycle with Carl Darlow. So I think it's Darlow and then Stace. But it's an unfun spot to be in unless Darlow just suddenly turns out to be like, actually, I was just really good all along. I was hiding it with the fact that I can't pass a football.
Darlow's got a decent record in the Championship as a goalkeeper, and he's played some Premier League games and he's experienced as well. I mean, why would you bring him in if you're not going to use him?
Yeah. I mean, these are very sensible questions, but we are Leeds, so we don't do sensible answers to sensible questions, which is a shame. Can we stop doing that? Can we just do the sane stuff?
The obvious thing sometimes just do the obvious thing. Don't try to be too smart and too clever, because I think we've tried to double bluff teams and double bluff people, and like ultimately it's cost us. So let's not bother with that. Just do the obvious thing and do it well.
Yeah. Do what makes sense, and then you're fine. It's all okay. But if you keep doing what doesn't make sense in an attempt to sort of bamboozle people, all you end up doing is bamboozling yourself, which is not really a spot to be in. I will be honest with you. I haven't had time to do much research into this match. However, you have done a preview into this match. In the words of both the male and female cast of Grease, tell me more, tell me more.
You should never do that again.
It was that, or I was going to go either deep pitched or really high pitched. So I just settled with
I'm glad you went with that option then. Yeah. I'll give you the form guide. So coming into the game, if we look at the home side first, who were Luton Town, so talking about them, currently 23rd in the league, but on a little bit of a decent run. Although if you look at the last 5, it's 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. The loss and draw coming recently, but the 3 wins are in there as well. So they've been on an upward trajectory. They picked up 10 points in the last 5 matches, which is important for them trying to get out of the relegation zone. A win over Leeds the weekend would give Luton Town a chance to go level on points with, I believe it's Oxford. It's Hull level on points with Hull, who are 1 place above the relegation zone right now. From a home perspective, Luton Town have the 19th best home record in the league, which is actually slightly better than their away record. And the last 5 home games, they have 2 losses, 2 draws, and 1 win. So when you look at the last 5 games, ultimately their home form has been worse than their away form, if that makes sense. But as I said, the 3 points away from safety right now. Against Burnley, they lost 4-1, but they did have a man sent off very early in that game, but they did lose 4-0 to Burnley earlier on this season. So they've conceded 8 goals to Burnley this year. Their last game out against Sheffield United, when they were at home, they beat Sheffield United they lost to Sheffield United 1-0, which means they've lost to all of our title rivals, including a 3-0 loss to Leeds earlier on this season when Pero James and Sam Byram scored in that game. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. From a Leeds perspective, second in the table, which is horrible to say out loud right now because we were top for so long. But if you look at their record in the last 5 for Leeds, 1 win, 1 loss, and 3 draws. The draws that are causing the problem right now for Leeds, especially on the road. Leeds need to pick up a couple of wins now after dropping points at home in recent weeks as well. Referee for the game as well, Thomas Bramall, is from Sheffield, and that has been said that he's a Sheffield lad. But he did ref Leeds before in the FA Cup game against Cardiff City when Leeds won 5-2. So there wasn't really an issue there at all. In terms of our opposition going into this game, in terms of what Burnley and Sheffield United are doing coming into the weekend as well, Burnley are away to Coventry City, 12:30 on Saturday, kickoff for that game. And Sheffield United are away to Oxford at 3 p.m. on Saturday. I can see Sheffield United picking up 3 points away to Oxford, but Coventry and Burnley is a different kettle of fish completely. The fact that Coventry are home in this game versus being away to Sheffield United when they played them. But the key one there will be with Burnley. I think Joe Wayman said this a lot this week. If Burnley score first, they win. So you hope Coventry can get the first goal in that game. But they've started scoring goals and they're catching up on us on the goal difference as well. So we've got to be mindful of that. From a team news perspective, we've already talked about Carl Darlow. He is the big story coming into the game. There's no other injuries outside of that. Pat Bamford has been labelled as looking good in training, but we will touch wood and not jinx him too much because you never know what will happen. I would park that face for now, Joe, because you never know what's going to happen at the weekend. Wait till the season's over. Look what happened at Meslier last weekend. All right. For those who don't know, Joe came on my stream last week mid-game and was talking about how great Meslier was, made lots of faces, and then we saw what happened in the second. So,
yeah, that was slightly depressing. for a Meslier fan's sort of perspective.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kayla just got home. I think for a moment forgot I was streaming and sort of like swung the door open with a loaf of bread in arms, and I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Thanks for that. Bringing home the bread, literally and figuratively.
Okay.
Bye.
See you shortly.
See you.
Bye, Kayla. We'll move on, Joe. We'll move on. Let's talk about the midfield options coming into the game. So no other injury worries for Leeds. Max Verber also has another week of training under his belt. Ethan Ampadu getting that 55, 60-ish minutes at the weekend was important for him, which means he's guaranteed to start, isn't he? Doesn't matter. He could have one leg with no toes and he would still start the game. So Ethan Ampadu will start and he will benefit, you would imagine, from that little bit of game time that he got last week. There are some big calls to be made still in this lineup. What will Daniel Farke do in the wide areas? And what is he going to do in the central midfield area? They are the two big ones for me. In the central midfield, I personally would be going to Naka and Rotwell. I don't know about you, Joe, but I would be very, very surprised if Ethan Ampadu isn't sitting slap bang in the middle of that midfield. The question will then be, who partners him alongside of him? And then you look at the wide areas. Willie Gnonto looks like he's probably likely to start if the social media stuff today looks like it's any indication. But what I would say about that is it's not necessarily a guarantee that he starts in number 10. Daniel Farke very complimentary of Brendan Aronson's first half, which I thought he had a very good first half. Went out of it in the second half, but a very good first half for Leeds. Farke calling him the Leeds' best offensive player in the first half. So no guarantee he comes in for Aronson. There's no issue playing him wide either. I think Manor Solomon's been out of form recently, so you got an opportunity to put him in maybe in the wing as well. Dan James, you could also rest, take him out for a little bit. Personally, I'll get your take on it now, Joe, but personally, I would start Gnonto in the 10 and rest Aronson, because I would like to see Brendan Aronson coming onto the pitch with a half an hour to go with bundles of energy and loads of hard work, and could then actually have a really big impact to play in the game. But I would love to know your thoughts on the wide areas and the central midfield partnerships, as well as Ampadu, full stop.
So the way that throughout the international break I was looking at the number 10 sort of role was you've got two options. You've got Gnonto sits in there, or a winger sits in there, because people are also shouting Ramazani at everyone, or you've got Aronson. And the way I see it is you pick who plays in there dependent on what's available to you at the time. So in this specific case, I would probably say that Gnonto is your better shout, because I don't think Luton are going to come out and try and attack us and try and beat us, whereas those like line splitting passes are probably the way to go, and Gnonto's a little bit better at that. Against Borough, I probably do lean towards Brendan Aronson, because they like that more open style of football, and Aronson presses significantly better than Gnonto, in my opinion, which means that we'll win the ball back higher up and be able to hit them on the transitional stuff. The issue with playing against Luton is Luton don't get open enough for you to transition against them. So that's the concern for me with that. I think for this one, it's ideally Gnonto in the middle, Ramazani on one of the flanks, and then one of Solomon and James on the other, depending on who feels more well put together in terms of fitness.
You see, the James one's an interesting one for me, because I know everyone's saying he looks leggy at the moment. He's played a lot of football. I don't think that's been the issue, though. I think it's more of a tactical situation against Leeds. I think what we've seen is, especially, go back to the Millwall game in the league. Since then, they did it first with Joe Bryan. Joe Bryan didn't leave Dan James' side for 90 minutes. He never crossed the halfway line once, unless James did. Wherever James was, he was. When James got on the ball, he was on top of him. There was no space for Dan James to run into. And that's where Dan James is at his absolute best, when he's running forward onto a ball. Leeds haven't been quick enough to get the ball into spaces. They've been still too slow and too pedestrian in the last couple of weeks coming out from the back. And that replicates the poor form we had in the first half of the season during those less than impressive runs that we had. The tempo slowed down. Leeds didn't get out of the back quick enough. Teams got set up behind the ball, and Leeds couldn't break them down. If you're going to get the best out of Dan James, you've got to get the ball in front of him early, which means you've got to get the ball to either Joe Rodon or Jayden Bogle early, so you can find those balls down the line over the top. And that's been a real factor for me, that teams have come out with tactics to stop and nullify Leeds' most influential and effective players, but the likes of Dan James. And Leeds haven't adapted to that. They haven't tried to change. They haven't swapped wings with him, put it on the left. Even during games, they haven't swapped him over. And I think Dan James is equally comfortable on his left foot. He likes that little cut in and shoot with his left foot, so he can easily cross with his left foot or come in on his right foot and shoot from the left-hand side. So a little swapping the wingers over, I think, is important. We don't do that enough anyway. This is just from my own experience. When I coached, I always wanted both my wingers to swap every time the ball went out for a corner kick. Swap back, then swap over, then swap back, then swap over. And the reason for that is if I'm going up against a fullback and I'm going on his outside every single time, he starts to adapt to that. So he starts to lead that way. If I swap the wingers over then and put a left footer on the right-hand side, and the first time he gets the ball, he's expecting him to go outside, he goes inside, and you've got an advantage then, the same on the other side. And then you get him doing that for a little bit, and you swap him back over again, and you constantly keep the fullback guessing which way they were going to go. And gone all Tony Adams there for a second. But yeah, the point that I'm making is you've got to keep your fullbacks guessing. I think Leeds at times in the last couple of weeks have been a little bit predictable. And I don't necessarily think it's a player fault. I think on James' side, on Solomon's side, I've been a bit disappointed in him recently that he's not running at people, because that's his game. Get the ball to feet and attack players 1v1. And we haven't seen enough of that from him. He's been pretty passive in games for me, not getting on the ball enough and not getting involved when it's not happening for him. So, and then the Joe Pirro situation up front. Joe Pirro needs service and needs to be fed, and we haven't been feeding him in the last couple of weeks, which is why I think his goals have dried up as well. So there's a lot of conversation around that front three, their effectiveness, what they can do. It's not just personnel for me, it's tactical as well. But just my take on things, Joe.
Yeah, the more I look at this match, the more because I came in to the week thinking, bad things. But the more I look at it, the more I think that things are supposedly maybe in a better shape and a better little flavour for us, which could put us in a position for a win, I think, maybe. I don't want to full commit yet. And, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if I will be doing a watch-alongy stream tomorrow, because I know that only Leeds Bros typically do. I'm not 1,000% certain what my work schedule is looking like tomorrow, but if I'm able to, I will do. The spooky bit for me at the minute is, if things are effectively unchanged, are Luton intelligent enough to have responded to that and have found a way to deal with it? Because if that's the case and we drop points again this weekend, that's where things get a little bit more scary, I think.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah. I think the record looks decent though as well. I know Andy's been saying about statistics are not a necessarily guarantee. He's right. They're just a mechanic to kind of judge whereabouts that you are. But if you look at the head-to-head meetings between the two sides in the last 4 games, Leeds have won 3 and drawn 1. So there's positives coming into that. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's not. I heard Stuart Dallas today. We covered him on the news, but Stuart Dallas made a really, really good point. I'll read you his exact quote. I won't do his voice, but I'll give you the exact quote because I'd love to know what people think. So he was asked about the Luton Town game, and he said the Leeds have got a big couple of games coming up, and he just thinks that they need a bit more nastiness about them. And basically, he's gone on then to say that he thinks it'll be a similar type of game to Portsmouth, tight ground, fans on top of you, aggressive. And do Leeds really want to try and play their way through this game? Or do they need that little bit more bite, that little bit of nastiness? And I couldn't agree with him more. I think at this stage of the season, I want to see a Leeds team scrapping and fighting for this. I don't care if the football is fluid, but I want to see passion on the pitch. I want to see fight and balls and effort and all that stuff that you want to see from them. I want to see them getting stuck in. And if the football's not great, and if it's sloppy, fine, but go and win the battle then. And they always say it. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and you've got to earn the right to play football. And I don't think Leeds have been earning the right recently. I think it's possession, but not necessarily possession with purpose. And I think I would happily sacrifice a little bit of possession in this game to be far more physical, far more aggressive, and go after this game and really get at them. Again, after we scored early last week, Daniel Farke in the press conference said he told his players to calm down. That happened earlier this season as well. Leeds had 2 goals up. He told them to relax, and the other team got 2 goals back. And that doesn't work. Leeds are good when they're being aggressive. They're good when they're pushing forward. And I want to see that. I want to see us get a goal early and just keep on going and going and going, because for us, absolutely the best form of defense is attack. And I want to see that from this team. And I think it's in them. And I've said it before in the first half of the season. I just felt they were being pulled back at the wrong times a little bit. And I'm feeling like it again, where the reins have just been locked around them. I was like, well, just be a bit more conservative. And I don't want this Leeds team to be conservative, because at their best, they weren't conservative. And that's, for me, where they got themselves to the top of the league, and that's where they have to get back to again. I agree with Stuart Dallas on this. I just want to see a little bit more dirty Leeds, but as has also been said on my channel, know where the line is and don't cross it. Nothing stupid between now and the end of the season. But that doesn't mean you can't be more physical. And I think that's probably where Ethan Ampadu coming into the team is the point of adding that, is he will get that physical thing in there. Been asking the questions in the comments as well of, do we see a Gruev Ampadu defensive partnership? And I wouldn't be shocked to see that at all, but I would only expect that if he was playing Willie Gnonto as the 10, because that's a more aggressive attacking front players. You're not going to get the drop in from Gnonto that you get from Aronson, and that was shown on, that was a square ball or somebody else showed it during the week, but they basically showed a graph of Baron Cross and the Athletics, sorry. Basically showed the defensive positions of Gnonto when he was on against QPR versus Aronson, and Gnonto doesn't come back into the midfield to help out and defend. Aronson does. So if you're going to play Gnonto, you want to have that more defensive pivot in there, but I still think you can do it with Tanaka and Ampadu quite well. So there's definitely opportunities there for him to have a look around. What he does is anyone's guess, and I'm kind of happy enough with that, because I think this has been a really predictable Leeds team in recent weeks. You can nearly guess what the 11 was going to be every single week, which means it was easy for opposition managers to plan for Leeds. This week, I think it'll be a little bit trickier for them, because we don't know who's going to play in the 10. There's question marks over wide players, central midfield, and then the goalkeeper's changed. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think even if there's questions around the centre midfielders, that can sort of maybe bring questions around the centre backs as well. If you want to say, well, I mean, in theory, Ampadu can drop in if you want to keep Rothwell and Tanaka in that. Like, there's a lot of questions to be asked. Sadly, can't stream for that much longer today because the bread calls, as we know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite any questions from the chat. But at the same time, we're going to go into a fun little guest week segment that I'm putting together, known as Joe's Super Journalistic Daily Question. Now, Joe's Super Journalistic Daily Question is something that I have thought through in intricate detail, right, and is tailor-picked for the guest that I have here right now. It's a question that he can answer. I don't know if many others can, and it's going to be a question that is asked. Well, not the same question, but the same sort of tailored question will be asked to each of the guests that hop on. So your question, Joe, are you feeling ready?
I'm never ready for your questions, especially when you jump up with segments that I'm not aware of.
I warned you at the start of the stream, in all fairness. This one is a weird one that relies on context.
Okay, love context.
So, showers. People like different temperatures in the shower.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between the amount of hair on your head and how hot you like a shower? Because my theory is, right, my thesis is a couple of weeks ago, I had longer hair, hopped in the shower, reasonably hot shower. I was like, this is fine. Same temperature setting. Earlier today, I was like, oh, this is a bit hot. And it made me think, it's protecting your buns, innit?
Yeah.
Do bald people prefer colder showers? Because at the same time, women like a hot shower, at least compared to dudes.
Yeah.
So as the baldest man on this stream right now,
currently, it's coming for you. It's coming for you.
What you? To be clear, baldness and testosterone matching.
I do.
This is the most beardy I get. I'm fine.
Fair enough.
What are we thinking? Are we thinking it's linked? Is
no.
it?
No, I don't. My wife has loads of hair, and her body temperature tends to run fairly hot. At the best of times, I'm pretty cold. She's pretty hot most of the time. So, and she loves a piping hot shower. I don't. I like a warm to very hot shower. I don't like kind of in the middle. I don't want to burn my skin. You know what I mean?
No, but this is the point. This is what I'm saying. You've not got the hair protecting you from the heat, whereas she does.
Well, Scooby has made a very good point. What if I'm wearing a shower cap? I'm still bald.
Are you wearing a shower cap?
No.
Well, there we go.
Dude, I don't even know where my face stops and my head starts, so I just keep going with shower gel because there's no point. But anyway, yeah, there you go. Best question to ask a bald man. Where does your face stop and your head start? I had that thrown at me once, and it was thrown at me as an insult in a game, and I would likely react badly to that and then get really aggressive and head over to the person. But it caught me off guard and I laughed so hard. I thought, that's fantastic. Well done, mate. That's great. Well done. You've done me. Well done.
It's one of those where if someone says that to you in a game, you're like, shit, where?
I've got nothing. I've got nothing. Yeah. No.
That same kind of vibe. But yeah. Any Jez super journalistic daily questions from you, or have we?
was going to make it football related and game related that we're talking about. I was going to say, what do you think this scoreline will be at the weekend? And what would your 11 be if you're picking an 11?
Oh, I am going to say Darlow, because that decision's been made for me.
Yeah.
Imagine if I said Meslier, though. Bogle. I'll do Stroke Rodon.
Yeah.
With Firpo on the left, because Firpo has to be on the left. Yeah. Centre of midfield. Can I go a bit weird?
Go for it. Well, go what you think he's going to... Go what you would like versus what he would do.
Oh, what I would like is different, though. What I would like is we go like very aggressive. Because in that case, we keep the back four. But I'm going to say that your fullbacks are not fullbacks. They are straight up wing backs. They are very, very up, always, like they normally are. Yeah. Then a single central midfielder being Ethan Ampadu. But in that case, when we're going forwards, drops to form a back three.
Bielsa 4-1-4-1 here.
Bielsa ball, yeah. My two in front, I'm not having anyone doing glitchy things. I'm going Aronson Nonto in the middle. Because I feel like there's enough insanity in there that Rothwell just doesn't quite bring. In the wide areas, Ramazani, Solomon with the intention of bringing on James after an hour.
Okay.
And then up
top, you wouldn't change the wingers from last week. You keep them as is for at least the start.
No, I said Ramazani out there. Ramazani instead of Solomon. Ramazani instead of James. Solomon on the other flank, and then you bring on James for half an hour at the end. And up top, I've not got one. I've got 2 10s.
Oh, yeah, go 40. Yeah, 4-1-4-1. Who's your striker then?
I figured we're chucking a lot of balls into the penalty area right now.
Joseph.
No.
Don't say his name.
I've got to say.
Don't invoke it. You're not on your channel. Don't invoke his name.
This is my channel now. This is my channel now.
I'm the captain now.
You know what? We've got a Dillo. We've got a Darren. You know my middle name? My middle name? Daniel. It fits.
Oh,
I'm one of the Ds. We're in 3D now, and we're picking Patrick Bamford. And there's nothing you can do about it.
So the realistic team you'll pick is Darlow, Bogle, Firpo, Rodon, Stroke, Ampadu, Tanaka, James, Ramazani, Nonto, Piru.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
That's what I think he'll pick. I would like to see Tanaka Rotwell in the middle of the park, and I would like to see Ramazani, James, and Nonto play.
It would be nice, but whether we get it or not is a bigger question. And yes, absolutely. Mine now.
Sean, be careful. We did our entire 1990 World Cup and 94 World Cup are based of players that could have played for England that chose us instead. So, fair is fair, I suppose,
Yeah, so someone was having this...
And you take it away.
Someone Welsh was having this conversation with me a while ago at some point, and I was like, can you remind me where Dan James was born? And they were like...
Yeah, Hull.
Yeah, fair. So that fell apart
almost a Leeds lad. He's almost a Leeds lad. I think Dan James is a Leeds fan, though. Or he was.
I think he
wouldn't have been. He went to Manchester United, so he wouldn't have if he was a Leeds fan, but maybe he's loosely. But yeah, he's from around the area. But yeah. All right.
Scooby, you know that this has been one of the more normal streams that I've done. Let's not pretend here. This is sensible for what we can...
Slightly different tangents you come for. Yeah.
For what we can expect for the rest of Guest Week. On which note, thank you, Joe, for being the first guest of Guest Week on the Only Leeds Bros channel. I will be around ideally daily for a while, but please keep in mind that tomorrow I wake up at 5 in the morning for work. The day after, I wake up at 2 in the morning for work because I work on Formula 1 stuff, and it's over in Japan this week, which is fun. So if that doesn't work out, then that doesn't work out. I'll do my best, though. And yeah, hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please pop a like. Oh,
I'm doing a watch along on bigup.com tomorrow. If you do want to join me there, in case Joe's not doing anything here, I will be there at 12 o'clock for a 12:30 kickoff. You can join me on it's bigup.com. And then just look up Leeds Interview. I'm the only Leeds channel over there, so you'll find me pretty easily.
And if I'm not doing a watch along, I might join Joe before kickoff and at halftime and various bits and bobs. And yeah. Also, Subscribe to the channel because I checked this a little bit earlier. They were at the start of the stream very, very, very close to 2,500. So if you are not subscribed right now and you are watching, please do so, and then we can push them over that little barrier, and that'll be a very nice thing to do. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe, you can become a channel member, all that fun stuff. Head over to Big Up tomorrow at noon. Are you sure that's when the kickoff is this time? No, I've already done that joke. Sure. It's fine. Yeah, and Joe, have you linked the F1 stuff, please? No, because you are not in Spain, Portugal, or Japan, and that's where the broadcast is that I'm working on. Sorry. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you later.